Welcome back to November's Q&A episodes all about leadership with our good friend and leader, Leif Babin. Now, if you haven't gone back and checked out week 1, week 2, make sure to go do that. Leif is a best-selling author. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's co-founder of Echelon Front. And he's been not only, obviously in the trenches with, the SEAL teams, having a lot of leadership skills there, but has then transferred into essentially going around to businesses and working with different leadership groups. And the question for this week that I think is really powerful, that I'm genuinely really curious about, and I've loved the previous two, but this question, Leif, is what's the most impactful piece of leadership advice you've ever received? And you've been blessed in many ways to be around some incredible, incredible leaders like Jocko, who has a lot of discipline, and I'm sure you've been with many others. But what is a piece of advice that's maybe really impacted you on a leadership side?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think probably the most impactful piece of leadership guidance that I received is from Jocko, where I learned most of the leadership lessons that I've applied in my life. And when Jocko was my boss, he really taught me that if you want to be in charge of everything, you should strive to be in charge of nothing. And it seems totally counterintuitive. It seems kind of like it, we think, well, it feeds my ego. I want to be in charge of stuff. I want to make all the calls. And just to illustrate what this actually looks like, from the time that I can ever remember wanting to be anything, I wanted to be some kind of a combat leader. I wanted to be, I was playing army out in the woods and these mock battles that we'd put on as kids, or playing with my G.I. Joe figures in the sandbox. I read every book I could get my hands on when I was old enough to start reading about, combat and military, history. And even just, I watched every war movie that I could watch, and through 4 years of the Naval Academy. And then, when I finally made it into the SEAL teams, I really envisioned myself of being that leader that was standing up there on the battlefield and, pointing my finger at people and barking orders, and Jason, you do this, and Gabe, you do this, and take that building, or lay down suppressive fire. And there are times where I had to make some calls like that. But the times that I'm most proud of, we got in a lot of gunfights through particularly our deployment to Ramadi. We got in dozens of gunfights in this city that was held by thousands of hardcore insurgent fighters. And the times that I'm most proud of my leadership in the middle of a crazy, chaotic gun battle, what do you think I said?
Nothing. That's
I said
right?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Why is that?
Yeah, because you gave the team ownership and you let them go out there and do their thing, right?
I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to say a thing, because I've got to. I don't need to tell you to go take that building. I don't need to tell Gabe to lay down suppressive fire. Like, everybody's doing it. I had awesome people on my team who were stepping up at every level and laying down suppressive fire and clearing buildings and moving people off the street. They're already doing these things. I got to radio him, and I don't have to be like, hey, call the tanks and bring in fire support. He's already doing it. He's already moving. Hey, I've got a air control that's already talking to aircraft. We're already, and so what that does for me as a leader is now I can start to think about the next step and the next step and the next step beyond that. And that's really what decentralized command actually looks like. We have this vision of what we call at Echelon Front the traditional leader. That's what Jocko's term is for the traditional leader. What do you think about when you think about a leader? Well, I'm in charge. And this is not just the military, right? But in the business world too. I stand up in front of people and bark orders, and I have all the answers. I tell people what to do. And the real leader that we should be trying to be, what Jocko really taught me, the leader that I should try to strive for, is to be that silent leader that trains the team, empowers the team, says, instead of solving all their problems for them, actually says, hey, what do you think we should do to get this problem solved? Here's the goal. Why don't you come up with a plan and tell me how you want to solve that? That's how he led in Tasking and Bruiser when he was my boss. That's how he leads now at Echelon Front. That's how I strive to lead. And I've sometimes fallen short of that mark, certainly. But that's what the best leadership actually looks like, is to be that silent leader where you have a team of people who understand what the goal is, understand what the purpose, the goal, the insight they're trying to achieve is, not just what to do, but why they're doing it. They understand parameters. inside of which they can make decisions, outside of which they can't make decisions, but they can run things up the chain of command. They can at least make a suggestion about how to solve a problem up their chain of command, to give their chain of command options about how to solve a problem that the frontline troops are actually closest to. And this is what the best leadership actually looks like. So that you have a team of leaders at every level that are stepping up and making calls and moving the team forward in a positive direction to accomplish the goal. And I think that's what good leadership looks like. And I think that's the most powerful leadership advice that I've received.
Man, I love all the examples from the battlefield, because I think they're very black and white. Like everyone kind of can understand it. But what you're saying, there's a lot of parallels, and it reminds me of a conversation we recently had with a guest on the podcast with Bart Kwan, who's talking about him and his wife always doing the work to stay on the same page, so that when the big decisions come, like they're almost reading off the same sheet of music then. And it's the same parallel, right? It's like, whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with coworkers, whether it's, on a sports team, if you're constantly on the same page in practice, when, the stakes aren't super high, when the stakes are high, when you're in a firefight, or you're dealing with a big decision with your spouse, you're going to be on the same page, and there doesn't have to be this like back and forth of someone like barking orders. It just kind of happens. So that's what that reminded me of. But I love the battlefield examples, because they just make it so clear, so black and white. Everyone can see how this is so important when the stakes are honestly the highest, because, it's a matter of life and death when you guys are out there.
Yeah. I agree with you, Gabe. His analogies with the battlefield are so clear cut for me, like especially like the front lines, then transferring up the chain of command and understanding those parameters, and then like being a silent person and having these different people do. I mean, I think about, how does that relate to me, right? And it's just totally, yeah. Leif, I love the parallels, and especially obviously, I think I love the parallels you draw to battle, because obviously that's not something that I've personally experienced, but I have a vision of, like, as you talk about this, I could see it in action. I could see the person that you were talking about, the leader that's like kind of holding the sword and like telling people where to go. And then I see the leader kind of just like in the back, just like everybody's doing their thing, and they're thinking about, okay, my team is already executing. What is the vision? What's the next step? Like, it allows you to free your mind from the clutter to allow you to think about bigger picture. That's what I'm taking from that right there. I love it.
Well, think about the opposite, right? If I'm the leader, right, and I say, Jason, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your team and you're going to do this specific thing on this specific timeline, the way that I'm telling you to do it. Gabe, I want you to do the same thing with your team, this specific way on this specific timeline, the way that I want you to do it. Then what happens, right? When we go out on the battlefield, you are just, and you encounter a problem, you encounter an obstacle, you're just going to wait to be told what to do. And that doesn't work, because as a leader, I can't be everywhere at once. There's no way I can be everywhere at once. So I need you to have ownership of that plan. And so this applies, whether you're talking about a spouse, when you're talking about your kids. I mean, Jason, I've talked about this with kids, right? If I try to force my kids to do a workout with me, because I know it's good for them, and I know it's, the way that they want to do it, the harder I push them, the more they push back. And sometimes my son will just lay on his face, instead of doing push-ups. And I can't actually make him do the push-ups, right? But I realize that if I can give him ownership of the problem, and I say, hey, bud, let's do a workout today. What workout do you want to do? Why don't you come up with a workout that you want to do? You can design the music. Like, I'll give you the playlist. You can do all those things. And if he has ownership of it, he'll crush that workout. It's his workout. It's not my workout that's being imposed upon him. It's actually his workout. He has ownership of it. So this is really what decentralized command looks like. And, if you can empower people, and that enables me to actually think about, okay, where we want to be, 6 months from now, a year from now. So it's exactly the same thing, from the battlefield to leading your family, to leading a business. The more ownership that you can give to people, the more that you can say, here's the goal. How do you want to execute it? And then make sure that plan is going to, meets the time constraints or meets the resource constraints that we have in order to actually achieve the goal. But the more ownership you give to people, the more that they can actually lead themselves, which enables you to think strategically about the long-term goals.
Dude, perfect. Well, this is week 3 of our series of leadership with Leif Babin. And if you have not checked out week number 1, week number 2, go back. their 15, 20-minute listens. They're incredible insight that Leif is sharing. And if you guys have not checked out what they're doing, in particular, obviously go check out the incredible books that him and Jocko have written. That's a non-negotiable. If you haven't read, basically all of them, I've loved, anyways, go back, check out all the different books, but more importantly, also check out Echelon Front. They're putting on events throughout the year, whether it's an FTX, whether it's a muster. They also do individual type events where Leif can come out to your company and give presentations and talks. Make sure to go check that out. And is it echelonfront.com is the best place to go, Leif?
Echelonfront.com. They can check out our website, see the kind of events that we do and the training we provide. And I think what's different about us versus others is that we're not talking about theory learned in a classroom somewhere. We're talking about practical, actionable things that you can do as a leader, whether you're in charge of a team of people or whether you're just in charge of yourself and your piece of the mission, things that you can do to implement in your world to solve problems through leadership and win.
Incredible. Well, we're fired up and let's get ready for week number 4. Stay tuned and make sure to go check out the previous 2 episodes.